Let's get ready to rumble!
Welcome back to Keep It Real Boxing. This is Cypher Box, and I want to talk about the welterweight division. So let's just get straight into it. Let's start with Keith One-Time Thurman. Mr. I've got an O and I ain't afraid to let it go. That's what he likes to say. He's had a lot of criticism lately since he's announced his return to the ring from his 12-month layoff due to an elbow injury. He's also got married in that time, and he's come back with a bit of a different attitude. Keith Thurman's always been one of those people who says he'll fight anyone, anywhere, anytime. Take on all challengers, wants to be undisputed champion, all that sort of stuff. And at the end of the day, you feel a little bit for him as well, because as soon as he's announced he's coming back, he was on the Showtime. I can't remember what fight it was, but he was on the Showtime panel for that fight. And ERROL Spence Jr. was there too, and straight away everyone jumped on him. When's the fight going to happen with ERROL Spence Jr.? But that's what happens when you got a target on your back. He's holding two of the major sanctioning belts, probably the most decorated ones. He's holding the WBC and the WBA out of all the four major sanctioning belts, and that's what's going to happen. People are going to jump all over you, straight away. You've got a target on your back. You're the main man in the welterweight division at the moment. He is. You can't deny that. He's holding two of the major sanctioning belts, two of the most prestigious ones as well, the WBC and the WBA. He's got two belts over the other champions, of course, so that makes him the man at the moment in the welterweight division. I'm not saying that ERROL Spence and the other fighters can't take that spot from him, but at the moment, he is top dog. And, he hasn't done himself any favours with the way he's been talking, I suppose. He says he needs a tune-up fight. I've done a video on this before, and I agree with him. He does need a tune-up fight. When you've been out for 12 months and you've had a serious injury which has kept you out. Not only that, he's kind of been travelling a lot, got married. I've been watching his Instagram. Your look on life can tend to change, when you make changes like that in your life. He doesn't seem too keen on fighting ERROL Spence Jr. just yet. I saw a video in Fight Hype I think it was off FightHype.com, and where he said that, ERROL Spence says when he's ready, we'll have that fight. And he turned around and said, well, I ain't ready. He says, not that I'm not ready now, it's just that I've got other things I've got other priorities, and then when I get those out of the way, then, we'll make that fight with ERROL Spence Jr., but it will happen. Basically, what he was saying was that he feels he needs this tune-up fight. Totally agree with that. Can't blame him for that. Yeah, got no problem with that. Then he says he's got to deal with his mandatory challenger, which is Shawn Porter for his WBC belt. And he's only talking about, Thurman's only talking about fighting twice next year, or this year, should I say now. We're in 2018. I said in my last video about this, I said I don't see why Thurman can't fight 3 times next year. I believe he can have his tune-up fight, go fight Shawn Porter, have a bit of a competitive fight to get him ready for ERROL Spence Jr. And then at the end of 2018, November, that time, he can step in the ring with ERROL Spence Jr. and have another unification fight. Alright, so to me, it sounds like Thurman is definitely wary of ERROL Spence. I think he knows ERROL Spence is the real deal. He sees him as, he is a massive threat in the welterweight division. We can't deny that. With his recent performances over Kell Brook, and the way he's come up and the way he's performed against certain fighters, he's definitely got the potential in ERROL Spence to be the undisputed champion at 147 pounds. He brings, his skill sets, his abilities, he brings a lot to the table. We know that. And you're never going to get a fighter saying he's afraid or he's cautious about another fighter. They're never going to openly admit that. I know a lot of fight fans out there would wish that fighters would just admit that, but they're never going to do that. And I think Thurman definitely is cautious of Errol Spence Jr. at this moment in time. He's thinking to himself, I've been off for 12 months, I've had an injury, you know, I don't know whether next year is the best time to get in the ring with Errol Spence Jr. I don't know if I'm going to be ready for that guy. Yeah? Okay? He's saying he wants a tune-up fight, and I told you I don't care about the tune-up fight, even though from what I understand he's picking Jesse Vargas as the tune-up fight. Now I'm not saying Jesse Vargas is the best welterweight in the world, but you think coming off a 12-month layoff and coming back from an injury that, you know, you'd probably take a little bit of a softer touch than that. That's the whole point of a tune-up. Jesse Vargas will come in there competitive and hungry and wanting to prove a point and wanting to take those titles off Thurman. I don't think he beats Thurman. If it's the Thurman of old, I don't think he beats him. But it's one of those fights that could potentially be a difficult one if you allow it to be. Especially if you're coming off a 12-month layoff with an injury, with an elbow injury, which from what I can see from videos I've seen, he's still kind of nursing that injury as well. So I don't know whether Jesse Vargas is the best choice. But he's going to have a tune-up fight. That's fine, no problem, get that out of the way. He then says, oh, I've got to deal with my mandatory challenger in Shawn Porter, because Shawn Porter's earned his right to get his rematch against me, etc. Fine, get that, get out of the way. And what else is good about that? That's a competitive fight as well, which will prepare him for, you know, the likes of Errol Spence Jr. Now, this is where we're now going to talk about in terms of the fight I potentially think after Shawn Porter should happen would be against Errol Spence Jr. But I think what he wants is that he wants the likes of a Danny Garcia, even though he knows he could beat Danny Garcia, but it still be a competitive fight. I think he wants 2 or 3 competitive fights before he gets in the ring with Errol Spence Jr. Maybe there's a part of him hoping that Errol Spence Jr. will lose in that time and then he doesn't have to deal with it. But the bottom line is that he wants I think he wants 2 or 3 competitive fights before he even thinks about fighting Errol Spence Jr. I think he's a little bit, there's probably a lack, when you come off an injury, there's a lack of confidence, maybe a lack of belief that, you know, you could physically, you know, compete. You know, we've seen it before. Look at James DeGale recently. You know, there was a lack of confidence in his jab. He had a right shoulder injury, which he had surgery for. And then, you know, when you saw him against Truax, you know, he hardly threw that jab because he is a southpaw, and he hardly threw that right jab of his because he had a lack of confidence in his shoulder. And he said, I came back too early. So fighters do go through that. You know, there's a psychological effect to injuries as well, where they feel like, am I going to be, you know, what I was, or, you know, am I really ready for a comeback, or am I ready for that certain fighter? I could beat these sort of fighters, but can I beat that fighter? Probably not just yet. Give me some time. So it might be the case that he's trying to wait and feel out his injury. There's a lack of confidence there from himself. In terms of going into the ring with the beast like Errol Spence Jr. That's how I see it. I think Thurman definitely might be lacking some confidence right now due to his injury, a lack of belief, and I think he wants 2 or 3 perhaps competitive fights before he even thinks about fighting Errol Spence Jr. Okay, he was also asked about Terence Crawford. Now, he was talking about Terence Crawford coming into the welterweight division, which is great, by the way. You know, shout out to Terence Crawford, just won the ESPN Fighter of the Year for 2017. Also, let's not forget, he had a great achievement last year, becoming undisputed champion at 140 pounds. So credit, you know, to Terence Crawford. You know, he's had a great year, no doubt about it. Now he's moving onwards and upwards into the welterweight division. Stacked division, you know, plenty of tough fights, big fights there for him, and you know, it'll be interesting to see what happens in the welterweight division. You know, it's only going to add to the welterweight division, to the, you know, to the excitement of the welterweight division. Keith Thurman was asked about Terence Crawford, and in an interview, and he turned around and said, you know, Terence Crawford, you know, he's done great. Exactly what I just said about Terence Crawford, he repeated, but basically turned around and said that Terence Crawford needs to make himself relevant at 147. He needs to do something at 147. Once he's done that, then I can start talking about Terence Crawford to you and answering questions. Basically, what he's trying to say. I think the reporter who asked the question got a bit upset. Like, what do you mean he's not relevant? And well, he's not. He's done great stuff in his last division, but this is a new division. And I'm kind of going to touch and give my opinion on what Thurman said there in regards to Terence Crawford. And you just heard me. I've just praised Terence Crawford. I think he's a tremendous fighter, but I agree with those comments. He does need to do something. He has to do something in the welterweight division. A lot of fighters think, a lot of fans out there, they say, oh, well, he did this in his last division, and so yeah, he is relevant already. No, it doesn't work like that. It's a new division, it's a new animal, it's a new beast you're entering to. You look at how many top contenders there are in the welterweight division compared to 140 pounds. Yeah, so he's now going up against the likes of Shawn Porter, Danny Garcia. You've got ERROL Spence Jr., you've got Thurman himself. Potentially an Amir Khan if he can get his life sorted out and get his act together. There's loads of names in the welterweight division. There was Kell Brook, but he's moved up now. So it's a completely different division. There's more contenders here. There's more, competition in the 147 division. So I'm not saying Terence Crawford can't do it. You got the likes of, obviously he's now, I think he's the mandatory challenger to Jeff Horn's WBO title, which I think he'll win that fight. I don't think Jeff Horn wins that fight. Jeff Horn's crazy if he's going to, I will be seriously shocked if Jeff Horn could beat Terence Crawford. But Terence Crawford is going to win that fight, there's no doubt about it. And then it's what he does going on from there. It's a good way to introduce yourself into the welterweight division against Jeff Horn. He also gets to pick up a belt while he's at it, but then it's what you do after that when you go out there and you fight the likes of ERROL Spence, or you go to fight Shawn Porter next, or maybe a Lamont Peterson. There's loads of names in the welterweight division that you could think of. There's like, there's, even if he went into ring with an Andre Berto just as a showcase, or there's Lucas Matisse's come back at 147. There's loads of names in there that Terence Crawford can, kind of stamp his arrival in the welterweight division against. And I think that's what Thurman means, that he needs to make himself relevant at 147. Yeah, he's done great stuff in the past, in his last division. This is a new division. There's more contenders here. There's more threats. There's tougher fights here in the welterweight division. So now he's in the welterweight division, basically saying, show me something. Show me that you're relevant in this division. What you done in the last division was great, but we're not in that division anymore. We're now in the 147 division, so show me. And I think Crawford will show. He will show everyone. Of course he is. He's a great fighter, and I think he will do really well at welterweight. He's another guy, if he gets it right at welterweight as well, he could potentially become undisputed champion at 147. There's no doubt about it, but I do agree that he needs to do something in the welterweight division. So fighting Jeff Horn, beat Jeff Horn, I reckon he beats him, takes his belt off him, and then it's who he fights next after that. Does he fight a Lamont Peterson? Lucas Matisse? Maybe he can gold Manny Pacquiao. They've got the same promoter. Maybe they can finally make that fight. Even go up against the likes of a Shawn Porter, or Danny Garcia. And then he can move up. He doesn't have to fight all those guys I just mentioned. He just needs one or two of them, and then say, right, Thurman and ERROL Spence Jr. Now I'm relevant. Let's do this. But let's lead off into what Terence Crawford has to do now. I think I've said my piece about Thurman, and when it comes to Terence Crawford, obviously we're just waiting to see what he can do at 147. I like Crawford a lot. I think he's a very talented boxer. He has great skill sets. I always enjoy watching him fight. I think there's still more to come from Terence Crawford personally, but he's got to take on his. He's been made the mandatory challenger to the WBO belt, which Jeff Horn is currently holding. I don't see that being a problem for Crawford. I think Crawford will win that fight. It's what Crawford does after that and who he goes up against and how he does against those individuals. He's not going to get a fight straight away, I don't think, with Thurman. He's not going to get a fight with Spence. He probably will have to fight a Shawn Porter or a Danny Garcia of that sort, and then move on to the champions. ERROL Spence Jr. was asked about Terence Crawford recently, in the last few weeks, and and Spence turned around and said, he goes, he's just another fighter. And I do like that about ERROL Spence. He doesn't see anything special about anyone. As far as he's concerned, he's the best in the division, and everyone else is just another fighter, and he'll beat any of them, And one thing I have to give credit to ERROL Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford is that they will fight anyone. They're not afraid to fight anyone in whatever weight class they fight in. You know, obviously Spence has only fought at welterweight, but you know what I mean by Terence Crawford. These boys, you know, whoever it is, I'll take them on. Let's do it. You know, but you know, like I said, I think, you know, Crawford obviously still needs to stamp his arrival in the welterweight division, and beating Jeff Horn's great, but that's something I would expect him to do, to be honest with you. And then it's what he does after that. So who does he take on? How does he perform against them? And if he gets the win? You know, he's got to make himself. I do agree with what Thurman said to a degree, which is that there's an element there where he has to make himself relevant, and he needs to put the welterweight division on notice, basically through his performances, not by just saying, yeah, here I am, I'm at welterweight, here I am, guys, you look better be worried. No, you need to show it in the ring. So that's just my little piece on Terence Crawford. I mean, there's not much else I can say about him because he hasn't fought at 147 just yet. Once he does start fighting at 147, we'll know how great Terence Crawford truly is. Okay, so let's get on to Errol Spence Jr. Definitely, you know, Errol Spence Jr. has made some noise in the welterweight division. He's soon to fight Lamont Peterson on, I believe it's January 20th, in January anyway, and that's not an easy fight. You know, I would, don't get me wrong, I favour Errol Spence to win that fight, but it's not an easy fight. Lamont Peterson, you know, I remember him against Danny Garcia. Obviously, he's not fighting Danny Garcia this time, he's fighting Errol Spence Jr. But my point is that Peterson is underrated in terms of his skill sets. You know, he can box, he can move, he can use the ring. I remember against Danny Garcia, the mistake he made against Danny Garcia, even though I felt he won the fight by 2 rounds. I honestly believe Peterson beat Danny Garcia by 2 rounds. He did. Go watch the fight again. He won the majority of the first 7 or 8 rounds. And he boxed well, he moved around the ring, he used the ropes, etc., and stuff like that. And the mistake he then made was that he may have got a bit cocky and started planting his feet and going toe-to-toe kind of thing with Danny Garcia, which suits Danny Garcia because Danny Garcia isn't, you know, he's got heavy feet, you know, he's not the quickest of boxers out there. You know, he relies a lot on having his opponent stand in front of him, and that's how he beats them. He doesn't have great footwork or foot movement, or, you know, he's not a light-footed individual. So, you know, but Peterson can do it all. He can fight on the inside, he can box and move. So it is a difficult fight, and he's a very competitive individual. You know, so it's not like he's showing up to just to get a paycheck. He's showing up to win, you know, and make a name for himself, get himself back on top in the welterweight division. So it is a tough fight. You know, I think it's a good fight. It's going to be an interesting fight. I still go with Errol Spence Jr. just by, you know, I think he'll probably, you know, grind him down and eventually beat Peterson. But I think it's a tough fight for Errol Spence Jr. We'll have to wait and see. I could be wrong, you know. Errol Spence Jr. could make an easy night of it. You never know. You can never really predict what's going to happen in boxing. You know, you think it's going to go one way and then suddenly it goes the complete opposite to what you say. Anyone could get a prediction wrong is what I'm basically trying to say. But Spence Jr., you know, hats off to him. You know, he's not doing what fighters would do. They wait around for that fight that they're waiting for, which is the one he's waiting for, which is Keith Thurman. He thinks, all right, if Thurman don't want to fight me, I'm going to keep myself busy. And when you're fighting in the welterweight division, you know, there's plenty of options out there for you to do that, to keep yourself busy. And it's a smart move. That's what you need to do. You know, don't let, you know, another fighter who doesn't want to fight you at this moment in time derail you or put you in a position where you're being inactive. You know, an active fighter is always going to be at the top of his game. You know, that's the truth. Everyone knows that. You know, the more inactive you are, the more lethargic and lazy you become. You know, and fighters need to be kept motivated. So you lose motivation as well like that. You know, so, you know, hats off to Errol Spence Jr. Just keep doing what you're doing and keep fighting, keep racking up those wins, and, you know, and that will also help put pressure on Thurman, because people say, well, look what he's doing. He's beating everyone in the division. You're the only one who hasn't stepped in the ring with him. So it's another way of also putting pressure on Thurman to step in the ring, sign the contract, and step in the ring with you. So, you know, that's what Errol Spence Jr. just needs to keep doing. Okay, let's talk about Jeff Horn here, because I have to talk about Jeff Horn now. His last fight was against Gary Cochran, or whatever his name is. And I'll be honest with you guys, yeah, and it's been a long time since I've done this. I watched a few rounds of that fight, and I know he got the stoppage in the 11th, but I watched, they were showing it here on Box Nation. I watched a few rounds of that fight. I still need to go back and finish it off, and a few rounds of it, and I switched it off. I wasn't overly impressed by what I watched from Jeff Horn. I mean, I think he did well against Manny Pacquiao, don't get me wrong, it worked against Manny Pacquiao, but he was just so sloppy. Not just him, but Gary Cochran as well. You know, I just think it was a poor fight all around. You know, these guys were just like leading with their heads. You know, they were more focused on knocking each other out with headbutts than they were with, you know, with actual punches. It was just messy. You know, it just looked like a couple of novices in the ring. That's how it looked like to me. I'm gonna keep it real with you. You know, it was frustrating to watch. I was like, you know, where's the boxing in this? I don't see it. You know, they're just mauling each other, and you know, I personally didn't rate from what I saw. I know, like, I can't say how the rest of the fight went because I didn't watch it. Maybe you guys can fill me in, and if you think it was if it got better after that. But I had to switch it off because I just thought, you know what, I don't see what Jeff Horn brings against the rest of these welterweight fighters. I think he'll get exposed. I think definitely against Terence Crawford he gets beat, and Crawford's going to take that belt off him straight up. I'll be really shocked if anything else other than that happens. You know, but the fight's going to happen in Australia, so the one thing Crawford needs to do is make sure he either makes it a 12-round masterclass like Billy Joe Saunders did against David Lemieux, or he knocks him out. Don't let it go to the judges, because if you're going to fight in Australia, do you know what I mean? You've already lost. You know, in terms of that, you know, you've already lost in terms of the fact that Jeff Horn has that hometown advantage. But I don't see how Jeff Horn beats Terence Crawford. I really don't. I think, you know, and Crawford can box beautifully. We've seen him do that against Victor Porcel, where he's, you know, boxing, moving, etc. And then we see some, you know, Crawford can also get, you know, when he wants to, he can get in there with you and rough you up and do all that sort of stuff, and you know, knock you out and hurt you bad. So I think, you know, Jeff Horn, you know, I don't think he beats Crawford. I think Crawford will win that fight, and you know, I don't think we'll probably hear much more from Jeff Horn after that point. In my opinion, you know, he'll turn into one of those, I reckon, stepping stone fighters. That's just what I think. People out there might have different views, but I just don't see how he beats Crawford. I'm sorry, I wasn't impressed from the few rounds that I did see against the Gary Cochran fight. I thought he would have got better after his victory over Manny Pacquiao, but I don't see him as a major threat. The only way I see him winning fights is that if he was to, you know, through accidental headbutts, cutting his opponent's head, you know, his opponent's getting cuts from things like that, and then him teeing off and, you know, that causing a problem, a serious injury that works in Jeff Horn's favour. I don't see Jeff Horn as a major player in the welterweight division. That's just my opinion, simple as that. Okay, so let's talk about Shawn Porter. Shawn Porter has now worked himself back into position to be the WBC mandatory challenger to Keith one-time Thurman's WBC belt. See what I mean? Everything's about Keith Thurman, and that's why I say he's the top dog in the welterweight division. He's the one who's got the cross, who's got the X on his back, you know, X marks the spot, and he's the one that everyone wants a piece of because he is a top dog. He's holding 2 belts. He is the number 1 welterweight at this moment in time. Regardless of regardless of who you think wins out of Thurman and Spence, or Thurman and Crawford, or whoever, he is the number 1 welterweight at the moment. In this moment in time, you can't deny him that, because everyone wants a piece of him, and when everyone wants a piece of you, that means you're the top dog in the division. Shawn Porter, going back to him, you know, he's wanting that rematch with Keith Thurman. He felt he won. I think he believed he won the first fight. I don't. I personally, I can't remember what my scorecard was. I think I might have given it 2 or 3 rounds to Keith Thurman personally. A lot of people thought Shawn Porter was perhaps robbed in that fight, or, you know, it went the wrong way, or whatever it was. I don't believe that at all. I think Thurman did more than enough to win that fight. I'll be interested to see how it comes off in this fight. This is a different Thurman altogether. Like I said, you know, we don't know whether the same Keith one-time Thurman is going to return after his year off, and all that sort of stuff. He's got married. I don't know whether, you know, it feels like he's got a bit soft, you know, since he's got married, and it does happen. If we see the Keith Thurman that we've seen before in the past, I think Thurman will win that fight again. So how does Shawn Porter play into the welterweight division? You know, I'm not too sure about that one. You know, do I think Shawn Porter could become a world champion again? Potentially. You know, he has this great work ethic in the ring. He wins most of his fights by outworking his opponents, not necessarily outboxing them. You know, he applies constant pressure, pushing them up against ropes, into the corners. You know, a little bit of a wrestler at times. You know, wrestles with his opponents physically. You know, physically imposes himself is the best way I would describe it on his opponents, and that kind of saps a lot of energy out of his opponents and wears them down, and he gets a victory like that. I've rarely seen a fight where I've watched Shawn Porter and I thought, wow, he really outboxed and outskilled that guy. You know, I always look at a fight that he wins and think, you know, he outworked his opponent. Now, I'll probably have to go and watch the fight against Andre Berta again to kind of refresh my memory, but you know, I don't think he's like probably the best in the welterweight division when it comes to boxing ability, like skill sets. Like you look at Thurman definitely has that ring intelligence and that, you know, that movement, the lateral movement that he uses, etc. and stuff like that. Errol Spence Jr., you know, again, he's a bit cleaner with his work, and that's what I like to say. I like to see Shawn Porter be a little bit more cleaner with his work. That's the best way to describe it, actually. You even look at the likes of Terence Crawford. You know, he's cleaner with his work. You know, and that's, you know, with Shawn Porter, I don't think that's always going to work for him, where he can outwork and impose himself physically on his opponents all the time and win fights that way. You know, at some point you've got to put on a boxing masterclass at sometimes, you know, and I personally don't see Shawn Porter ever being that kind of boxer, basically is what I'm trying to say. So I don't know where Shawn Porter's, you know, where he's going to sit, you know, in 2018 or, you know, in this year, in the new year. I don't know. I personally don't see him picking up a world title. I think he'll lose to Thurman. He would lose to Errol Spence Jr. Let's not beat around the bush. I think Crawford will probably beat him, but although we're still waiting to see how Crawford will look and feel at 147. You know, just going on what I've seen from Crawford in his previous division, you know, I think Crawford will beat him as well. Don't get me wrong, I think he'll give any of them a tough fight, but you know, because he's that kind of fighter. You know, he applies a lot of pressure. But I think those guys will always come out on top because they have the better boxing skill sets. They will always find a way around it. Do you understand? They can adapt and change their styles. Well, I don't think Shawn Porter can adapt and change the way those other three that I just mentioned can, in my opinion. Let's not forget, you know, Shawn Porter also called out Danny Garcia a few times now. Danny Garcia is turning around saying that, you know, both camps have their own stories, as you do in this situation. You know, Shawn Porter's turned around, his camp have said that, you know, we've made an offer to them, they didn't take it. Danny Garcia's teams, you know, they never made an offer, etc. You know, it's one of those situations where, who do you believe? Do you believe Shawn Porter or do you believe Danny Garcia? You know, but I think that's a good fight as well. You know, Shawn Porter versus Danny Garcia. I think, you know, I don't see anything wrong with it. I think a lot of people would probably enjoy that fight. It'll be an action-packed fight, the way the both guys fight, their style of fighting. So, you know, maybe that gets made in 2018 as well, hopefully, you know. Okay, while we're on the subject, let's talk about Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia is looking to come back to fight Brandon Rios. Now, Danny Garcia has not fought since he lost to Keith one-time Thurman, where he lost his WBC belt. Fight's going to take place on February 17th between Danny Garcia and Brandon Rios. Now, a lot of people are giving Danny Garcia, as always, a lot of stick, calling him the cherry picker. He has been guilty of that at times throughout his career, let's be honest. Now, I can understand why people are seeing this as a cherry pick because it's Brandon Rios. And don't get me wrong, you know, part of me doesn't disagree. Let's just think about it. He's not fought since he fought Keith one-time Thurman. Yeah? Since he's lost to Thurman, he has not been active, Danny Garcia. So he needs a comeback fight. Okay? He's coming back off a loss. You need a confidence boost. You also need to knock off the ring rust. So you're not going to pick exactly a top welterweight, are you? Let's be honest. Yeah, it's like Thurman. Thurman's been out for the same amount of time with an injury. He's not exactly going to come back against ERROL Spence or any of the other top welterweights out there, is he? You know, so it's the same thing here. And he needs to probably have a fight where he can knock off the ring rust and, you know, get himself back into fight condition. And this is the fight to do it. Now Brandon Rios, you know, this could potentially be a banana peel for Danny Garcia, where he could slip up. And I'm going to give my reason as to why. This isn't the old Brandon Rios, from what I understand he's going up against. This is a refocused, re-energized Brandon Rios. Now, I'm not saying that Danny Garcia isn't favoured to win this fight. Of course he is. We all expect him to win it. Of course we do. You know, even I do. But I potentially see a little bit of a danger in here in this fight. And I'm going to explain why. Because this isn't the old Brandon Rios. Now, I remember when in his last fight when he had Robert Garcia as his head trainer, and I remember when he went into his little retirement and he turned around and said in the ring interview after he lost that fight, he said, you know, I think I'm going to hang it up, you know, I don't want to do this anymore, you know, I'm not passionate about it anymore, etc. You know, he was tired of cutting weight, you know, he wasn't able to manage his weight correctly, you know, he was pretty much undisciplined in that sense, you know, so, you know, he was ready to hang him up. Now he's come back, you know, re-energized, you know, rejuvenated and hungry, or he looks hungry anyway, and he's talking that way as well, because he's, you know, I saw an article in the boxing.com is saying that when I beat Danny Garcia, you know, don't any of you start jumping on the bandwagon. Don't start jumping on my bandwagon and saying, oh, you're great and this and that, and start basically kissing my backside, you know, because you're all thinking I'm going to lose. But I tell you now, he basically says he's going to beat him. So this is quite clearly a Brandon Rios who I don't think is just looking for a payday. I think a Brandon Rios who's definitely looking to, you know, bring his boxing career back to life. So if that means he's hungry and he's feeling competitive and he wants to prove a point, etc. and stuff like that, potentially it could be a banana peel for Danny Garcia as well. You know, these are both two guys who aren't, let's be honest with you, they're not Floyd Mayweather type fighters or Keith Thurmans. They don't move around the ring. They don't use, you know, they're very much flat-footed fighters who stand in front of one another and go toe to toe. You know, and that's what's going to happen. You know, we know that. You know, Danny Garcia's picked Brandon Rios because he knows Brandon Rios ain't the kind of fighter who moves around the ring and uses the ring and, you know, uses that ring craft that, you know, I've talked about so much already in this video. You know, he's going to be someone who's going to stand with him and fight on the inside and go toe to toe. That's the kind of, and he's a come forward fighter, Brandon Rios. He always has been. You know, it will suit Brandon Rios a little bit as well because Danny Garcia is not really that kind of fighter either. You know, he's probably got slightly better boxing skill sets than Rios. But again, do you know what I mean? And when I point all these things out to you, you have to think to yourself that potentially, you know, if Brandon Rios is, if this is, you know, the new Brandon Rios and he's motivated and he's hungry, like he sounds like he is, you know, could this potentially be a banana peel for Danny Garcia? We'll have to wait and see. You know, I expect Danny Garcia to win the fight, but I wouldn't be shocked if Rios pulled off a win, is what I'm basically saying. That's just my opinion. You know, I don't expect all you guys out there to agree with me. You're all entitled to your own opinions, but that's just the way I see it. But as for Danny Garcia, do I see Danny Garcia becoming an undisputed champion at 147 like he was at 140? No. I don't think he beats Thurman. I think Thurman pretty much outboxed him and outclassed him in their fight. I think Terence Crawford will probably do the same, and I think ERROL Spence Jr. would do the same, if I'm honest with you. Again, like I keep saying, you've got to wait to see what Terence Crawford looks like and feels like at 147. But I don't think it'll be a problem for him. But I don't think he beats any of those three. I think he'll probably have difficulties against Shawn Porter. I think Shawn Porter will probably potentially beat Danny Garcia, in my opinion. But you never know. I could be wrong. Maybe Danny Garcia can prove us wrong. But I just don't see him being top dog at 147 like he was at 140. I don't see it happening at all. I don't think he's got the skill sets or the abilities to beat the likes of Keith Thurman. Already seen that. The proof is there. Again, I think ERROL Spence will grind him down and actually probably knock him out. I think Crawford would probably do the same to him. I think Shawn Porter will probably get a decision over him. So I don't think we're going to see Danny Garcia at the top of the tree in 2018 or at any point while those names are floating around in the welterweight division. That's just my opinion. Okay, so let's talk about Mr. Aamir King Khan. Alright, okay, I don't know how seriously I could take Aamir Khan in the welterweight, in boxing at all at the moment. He hasn't fought since his loss against Canelo when he moved up to everyone was saying he was moving up 2 weight divisions. He didn't. He moved up to 155, a catch weight, which is technically 1 division up, and he got knocked clean out. We know that. But he's not had a great 2017 in his personal life, all the stuff with his wife, the accusations against Anthony Joshua. He's had a bit of success recently in terms of reality TV, where he was over in the UK. He was on the show I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, the whole jungle thing, In the Jungle and all that. I don't really watch all those shows. I didn't really watch any of from what I heard, he was quite funny. So he's had a bit of success there in that sense. But in terms of his boxing career, I don't know what Aamir Khan's playing at. Either you want to be a boxer or you don't. Either you want to fight or you don't. If you haven't got it anymore, just hang up the gloves and retire. You look at the whole Kell Brook situation. He keeps putting up roadblocks against that potential fight with Kell Brook. Kell Brook's now moving up to 154. He's quite clearly not going to sit around waiting for Aamir Khan. And why should he? You don't do that. If a fighter doesn't want to fight you, you move on and carry on with your career. Aamir Khan just keeps putting excuses there in the way of making that good, and it is, for the British fans, it's great. I don't know how the US or other fans outside of the UK feel about that fight, but for the British fans, it was going to be a great fight. But, you've ruined that now. That fight's probably not going to get made, because I doubt Aamir Khan will move up to 154 again, or to the light middleweight division. He keeps talking about rematches with Lamont Peterson and Danny Garcia, and he wants to avenge those before he goes on and fights for a world title. Recently, I didn't read the whole article, I saw the headline though. He's pretty much said he's interested in fighting Keith Thurman as well. So, I don't, he says he wants to fight all these people, but he never fights them. For me, right now, Aamir Khan is very much someone who, I don't think Aamir Khan is afraid of anyone. He'll generally fight and step into the ring with anyone, but I think he has his ego about him, where he thinks he's this big mega superstar and he should earn a certain amount of money. He thinks like he's on that Floyd Mayweather level when he's not, and that's what blocks a lot of these fights taking place, is because of his ego gets in the way. The simple fact of the matter is, you're not. Yeah, you lost to Canelo. Since his fight against, actually, to be honest with you, since his losses to Lamont Peterson and Danny Garcia, Aamir Khan really hasn't done anything amazing in boxing. He fought Devin Alexander, which he put on a good performance against Devin Alexander, but let's not forget, Alexander, he was a flat-footed fighter, and that made it easy for Aamir Khan. Not taking anything away, it was a good performance, but that's about the only thing he's done since his losses to Lamont Peterson and Danny Garcia. That's about the most significant victory he's had in his career since then, since the Danny Garcia loss. So, how you've got this ego that you're this megastar is beyond me. Stop making your ridiculous demands. If you want to get back into boxing, rebuild your career, and in order to do that, you're going to have to take less money. You've got to start from the bottom, because there are other players in the game now. You've sat out for so long, there's other players. There's Thurman, there's ERROL Spence, there's Crawford now coming in. You've got Shawn Porter, who's not, he's not like, the world-class elite fighter, but he is a top contender in the welterweight division. Even Danny Garcia's been more active. He's got more rights to ask for more money in a fight than Aamir Khan does. I'm sorry, it's true. Aamir Khan needs to make himself relevant again in boxing, not just in the welterweight division, in boxing, period. And stop talking the talk, start walking the walk. Because no one's buying it anymore. People are sick and tired of hearing his voice, that I'm going to do this, I'm going to fight this guy, this is my plan for this year and that year, etc. Tired of hearing it. Put up or shut up is what I said. I've said this about Aamir Khan before. Put up or shut up. I'd love to see him back in the ring. He does bring excitement to any fight. But you know, I'm tired of hearing his voice. Like I said, put up or shut up. Yeah, and boxing fans are just tired of your voice right now. You know, they want to see some action from you. Yeah, and that's all I really got to say about Aamir Khan. Get yourself together. Stop. Really have a real think. If you want to fight, fight. If you don't, retire, hang up the gloves, get out of the way. That's my opinion on Aamir Khan. Let's leave the legend till last but not least. I'm just quickly going to talk about Manny Pacquiao. I don't know, you know, what's going on with Manny Pacquiao. I don't know why he keeps fighting. You know, he's done great things in his career. He's achieved greatness. We know that. You know, 8-time 8-weight world champion. You know, 8 divisions. I mean, come on. You know, he's done some great stuff. You know, and he's earned a heck of a lot of money at the same time. So I don't know why he feels the need that he needs to keep fighting. It doesn't make sense to me, to be honest with you. Part of me thinks he wants to retire, but something keeps pulling him back, and it's not the passion for the sport. I don't honestly believe it's down to the passion of the sport. I think something else pulls him back, and I don't know what it is. But I personally think, you know, he should just hang him up, retire. You know, we thought we were going to get a Jeff Horn rematch. Looks like we're not going to get that. But I think he should just hang him up, retire, and concentrate on his political career. I don't see the point of him continually come back. It's time to pass on the torch. You know, like Mayweather, pass on that torch. Let these younger fighters scrap it out now to become the new name, the top dog in the welterweight division, undisputed champion. Hopefully, is something we're going to see in 2018, maybe 2019 going forward. You know, we'll see one of these guys holding all 4 major sanctioning belts. I think, you know, at the same time, Manny Pacquiao, he doesn't have anything left to prove, don't get me wrong. He's done enough in his career, I get it. That's why I'm saying he should just retire. But if you're going to stay active, then stay relevant. And what I mean by that is you've got to take on the fighters of now then. You've got to take on the Terence Crawfords, the Thurmans and the Garcias and the ERROL Spence. You can't work your way around that. Either you're going to box and you're going to be competitive in the fights that you take, or you're not. You know, he took the Jeff Horn fight because I personally think they thought the Jeff Horn fight was an easy fight, or he thought that. I'm sure his team sold that to him that way as well. And look what happened, you ended up losing the fight. You know, so I just think, like with most old fighters, you don't want to see them go throughout their career taking beating after beating after beating. You see it with Roy Jones Jr. a little bit at the moment. Like he said it to everyone, I'm going to do what I want to do. If I want to box, I'm going to box. That's fine, fair play to you. But you can't help but people being concerned by that. You know, they've watched your career, you've had a great career, and then to continually watch you get beaten up in the ring or lose in the ring, etc., and stuff like that, or get hurt or injured. You know, people don't want to see that. No one wants to see that. You know, you want your full faculties at the end of your career. You know, the use of your full faculties. You know, and your physical abilities. So when it comes down to Manny Pacquiao, I think personally Manny Pacquiao should just hang him up, retire. You've had a great career. Thanks for all the memories. You know, but just leave it at that. You know, concentrate on your political career. That's all I really got to say about the welterweight division, guys. I'm sure I've probably missed points or missed articles. You know, the last few weeks I haven't really done a lot of videos. I have been keeping up with the news on the way to and from work, reading articles and watching videos and stuff like that on YouTube. Interviews with individuals. I'm sure I've missed certain things. I'm sure you guys will be able to point them out to me. But that's just how I see the welterweight division at the moment. There are other names in the welterweight division, but I'm not going to talk about all of them. You know, they're not probably the key players, I suppose, in that division. I wanted to talk about the names that probably really matter, or the ones that people are most talking about. That's all I got to say. As always, guys, like, share and subscribe, and as always, this is Cypherbox reminding you to keep it real.